Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're diving into a text that literally flips everything we think we know about success, fame, and momentum right on its head. I mean, we live in a world where we're constantly told to hustle, seize control, relentlessly push forward to make a name for yourself. But what if true success isn't actually achieved through all that human ambition, but through strategic restraint? What if the absolute key to the greatest victories lies in knowing exactly when to stop, ask for directions, and just wait in the shadows? Let's unpack the hidden wisdom of an ancient narrative and see how it completely challenges everything we think we know about winning. Section 1. Stonewall Jackson's Prayer. Let's kick things off by jumping back to the year 1861, right in the early days of the American Civil War, to examine a really counterintuitive approach to military momentum. Our source material begins with this surprising historical anecdote that brilliantly illustrates the exact mindset we're talking about today. It highlights General Thomas Stonewall Jackson, a commander who quite literally earned his famous nickname by standing like a stone wall against enemy assaults. Now, naturally, after a massive, shocking victory, his men and his superiors expected him to just keep doing exactly what he had just done. The formula worked, right? Why change it? But Jackson famously refused to just rely on his past victories. Instead of rolling out the same successful playbook over and over, he insisted on dropping his assumptions and praying for entirely new strategies before every single battle. So the absolutely crucial point here is that his historical fame wasn't just built on raw skill or brute force. It was actually built on a relentless cycle of asking anew, waiting, and obeying. He didn't let the momentum of yesterday dictate the strategy of today. And as the source points out, it was this exact posture of humility, literally seeking fresh guidance rather than just coasting on past success, that actually secured his renown. Section 2. David in the Chronicles. Now, let's shift from 19th century America to ancient Israel to explore our primary source text in the Book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 14. Here is where the literary context gets really fascinating. If you read the history of King David in the Book of Samuel, which is often called the Deuteronomistic history, it is brutally honest. It highlights his profound flaws, his catastrophic moral failures, and his sins. But the Book of Chronicles, well, it was written later and has a very different focus. It aims to inspire hope for a post-exile community, basically people returning from Babylon trying to rebuild their nation. Because of this, Chronicles focuses heavily on David's ideal legacy, his military achievements, and his preparations for the temple. It doesn't entirely erase his faults, but it strategically highlights his successes to provide this blueprint for a strong, faithful community. Section 3. Past Success and Pride. This brings us right to the central conflict of the source material. It's really a masterclass in navigating the dangerous psychological aftermath of a massive victory. Let's walk through the exact sequence of events leading up to this crisis. Step 1. David is finally crowned king over all of Israel. Step 2. The rival Philistine army feels threatened, so they attack, but David experiences this miraculous, overwhelming military triumph at a place called Baal Perazim. The text describes the enemy being scattered like a bursting flood. It is a massive high. But then, step 3. The Philistines regroup and attack the exact same valley again. And this sets up a psychological trap our source brilliantly defines as spiritual inertia. This is the false assumption that yesterday's grace or yesterday's successful strategy automatically rolls over to today, kind of like a bank balance. Let's be honest, we're all creatures of habit, aren't we? If hitting the TV remote works once, we just keep hitting it harder the next time. If a strategy brings us success, our immediate instinct is to just copy and paste it right into the next challenge, completely bypassing the need to ask for fresh direction. But here is David's absolute brilliance in this narrative. Instead of giving into that inertia, instead of arrogantly charging down the hill because, hey, he had just beaten these exact same guys in this exact same place, he drops his recent experience. He completely resets. He approaches this second battle as if it were his very first, bowing down to ask for new instructions. And that right there, that is true humility. Section 4, Waiting in the Trees. It's a really good thing he asked, because the instructions he gets are wild, leading to an agonizing psychological test. This new command requires a total abandonment of his previously successful frontal assault. The instructions are highly specific. First, do not go straight up. Second, circle around behind the enemy army. And third, hide and wait in the brush opposite the mulberry trees. It's a classic ambush setup, for sure, but with a seriously agonizing twist. I want you to pause for a second and just reflect on the immense psychological tension those soldiers must have felt here. They're hiding in the trees. The enemy is approaching. Weapons are drawn. Every single instinct is screaming at them to attack, to seize the initiative. They must have been wondering, why must we keep waiting? Why can't we just attack immediately? Our timing seems perfect. But our sources highlight a profound takeaway here. Waiting is not giving up. It's actually the ultimate expression of trust. Yielding your personal timing to a higher power's timing, literally holding your position when everything inside of you is screaming to move, that requires so much more strength than just charging forward. Section 5. The God who fights ahead. So what exactly were they waiting for? Let's reveal the climax of the narrative. They were given a very specific sensory trigger. The text says, when you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the trees, go out to battle. Imagine the cinematic quality of that moment. A silent, tense ambush force waiting perfectly still until suddenly, an inexplicable rustling, the literal sound of footsteps, echoes through the treetops right above them. That was the exact moment to strike. Now, the theological revelation behind that sound is just fascinating. The source text makes it crystal clear that that sound in the trees wasn't just the wind. It was an unseen vanguard. It was the sound of God going out ahead of the army to strike the Philistine camp first. So while David's men were agonizingly waiting in the brush, feeling like they were doing absolutely nothing, a higher power was already moving into the center of the battlefield on their behalf. The victory was literally being secured while they were still standing still. The source beautifully connects this ancient Old Testament battlefield narrative to a foundational New Testament principle found in Romans 8:31. If God is for us, who can be against us? It brilliantly illustrates this concept that an unseen force is fighting ahead of those who trust in it, and it applies so broadly to anyone facing massive obstacles. The reassurance is that while you are waiting, the path forward is actually already being cleared. Section 6. The secret to true fame. Let's bring this explainer to its synthesis by looking at the aftermath of the battle and distilling the core lessons. The text concludes by noting that after this battle, David's fame spread throughout all lands. Now, contrast this with how we usually think of human striving, anxiously fighting, networking, and clawing our way to the top just to elevate our own name. But the text asserts that David's worldwide renown was actually divine renown. His lasting impact was established entirely because he surrendered control. Because he didn't try to elevate himself, a higher power elevated him. Based on all this, the source distills things down to 3 core secrets to spiritual and personal victory. First up, humility. That's the willingness to ask anew, to drop your ego and act like it's your first time, even after a massive win. Second, obedience. The discipline of waiting patiently, holding your position even when it is super uncomfortable. And third, trust. Believing in the unseen, trusting that forces are working on your behalf even before you hear the sound in the trees. So how do we actually apply this? Well, the explainer lays out 4 actionable steps for us today. 1. Bow down again today. Don't let yesterday's prayers suffice for today's challenge. 2. Drop past experience. Don't just copy and paste old solutions. Seek fresh clarity. 3. Hold your position of waiting. Don't rush the timing. And 4. Trust the unseen battle. Know that the groundwork is being laid for you even when you can't see it. Which brings us to our final thought today. Ask yourself, if the ultimate battle is already being fought ahead of you, what are you still rushing to control? It's a profound thought to leave you with. Think about where you might be applying spiritual inertia in your own life, and consider replacing that exhausting hustle with active, patient trust. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this ancient wisdom helps you navigate whatever valley you happen to be facing today.